today to the workshop on how to win the International Speech Contest. My name is Clara Gomez-Villeneuve, and I've been a member of Toastmasters for about 6 years. And on the first day of my membership, they asked me, do you want to compete in the speech contest? I joined in late September, and the humor speech was coming. So they asked me, and I said, what is that? And she's like, oh, is this, I didn't even hear what she was saying. I said, okay, sure. And I signed up. In 2 weeks, I was competing in the table topics. When they gave me that ribbon for second place table topics, I was hooked. I'm a trophy girl, I'm a medal girl, I'm a ribbon girl. I'm like, I'm in. So I've been competing religiously since then. It's my honor to introduce our Toastmaster for this morning. He has been a member of Toastmasters for less than 2 years. So it's my honor to introduce Santiago Gomez.
Good morning, everyone. As Claudia said, my name is Santiago Gomez, and I am a father of 2 amazing kids. I work for an engineering company, working with technology. So are you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's turn you into contest winning machines, yeah? All right, awesome. So to begin, we have our first speaker, Ingrid Peterson. Ingrid is an engineering specialist. She joined Toastmasters in 2009, and since then she has judged over 100 speeches, up to the semifinal levels at the Toastmaster International Convention.
Yes, not making
Welcome, Ingrid Peterson.
Thank you so much, Santiago. I try to keep my bio short. I love how this gets like expanded on. So let's talk about judging. Now, the biggest thing is that in a speech contest, the judges are not evaluators. The judges are not there to assess, what's going well and points of improvement and to give feedback afterwards. The judges are there for that contest to select the best speaker for that contest. And that's it. The judging is supposed to be confidential. Judges are not supposed to give evaluations or feedback afterwards, although really at the club level, it's not, if you wanted to talk to somebody, but you have to be careful because if someone doesn't like how you judged, then you could just have like lots of fluff. So that's why it's confidential. And actually the judges are not supposed to be identified, which of course at, club levels, when you have somebody new come to the club, it's like, I wonder who the judge is. But actually when you get up to the higher levels and you have 100 or 200 or 2,000 people in the room, then of course the judges are anonymous. And what makes a good judge? Well, the judging is supposed to be non-partial. In other words, you don't judge that person based on which area they're in, like if it's a competing area, you're like, meh. Or if it's based on their religion or what they look like, how old they are, their political beliefs, or if you don't like their speech topic, you're supposed to ignore all that. And in theory, judges are objective, which obviously doesn't always happen, but there is a judges form which I've handed out to most of you, which we'll go through to try and help with that, with being objective and actually being consistent in your judging.
Does everyone have extras?
Oh, okay, because I have a few more.
No, she gave extras.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe Neville, I missed him. And so the eligibility and code of ethics form is in place to help judges remember, okay, I need to be objective. I can't, and as my introduction, I've judged at over 100 speech contests, not just 100 speeches, like speech contests. Like I actually haven't counted, but over 10 years, spring and fall contests, I've done a ton of them. And what that means is that I've seen people compete over and over again. But each time someone competes, I need to, when I'm judging, think, how is their speech today? Not how was their speech today compared to their speech last year. Their speech last year was a lot better. I can't think about that. I have to think about how was their speech today. And if it's somebody that you know really well, then as an evaluator, you might use that in your evaluation. Hey, Claudia, you know, your speech this time, you really improved on your eye contact compared to last time. But as a judge, you have to think about how is their speech today, and that's it. And so the ethics form, that was developed a few years ago, and partially, probably to help judges remember, okay, you need to be objective, you need to be fair. And so the speech contest rule book. Now I'm telling contestants to read it. You're thinking, well, I'm not a judge, why should I read it for? Because the rules are actually really important. For example, eligibility. I've had people win at club contests, go to area, win at area, and then we find out their dues weren't paid. And then they're disqualified. Like, that's horrible. So as a contestant, you want to make sure your dues are paid, your club is in good standing, and that has to start from the club level. If your secretary or your treasurer forgot at the club level and remembers at the division level too late, you were ineligible at the club level, so you're now ineligible all the way through. And surprisingly, for the rule book, as a chief judge, I've had people come in at area level, compete in area level, and then afterwards I found out that they didn't compete at club level, that the winner at the club level couldn't make it to the contest. So the club sent somebody else. But no, you have to physically compete at each level to go to the next level. So that's why as a contestant, it's helpful to read the rule book so that you know the rules, just in case somebody else does it and they forget. For example, you can't compete in 2 area contests. It doesn't matter if one area is in Edmonton and the other's in Victoria, BC. You cannot. So if you're thinking, well, I'm gonna like divide and conquer and I'm gonna have more chances. No, you can't do that. So that's why as a contestant you should read the rule book. And the rule book changes every year. So not dramatically, but there's a few minor points that tend to change. For example, this year we have region quarterfinals. We've never had that before. So in other words, you go from club to area to division to district, and then the district winners, instead of going straight to the international convention for the semifinals, now there's this region quarterfinals. And what that means is that at the district level, everybody has to be videotaped, and those videotapes are sent to judges, the winner of the region. So if you're not familiar with the Toastmasters hierarchy, after districts, there's regions. And so there's 14 regions around the world. One winner from each region will then physically go to the international convention and compete in the semifinals. This is a new step in the process. And the reason why they're doing that is because there's so many districts now worldwide that at the international convention, they were spending way too much time and resources trying to get all these speech contests in at the semifinal level. So this is brand new. It doesn't impact how you're going to do your winning speech, which will be talked about later in this session. It's just another step. And so that's a rule like that is like huge change to the competition. And also for the district level, because we've changed from having 2 sets of contests a year, one in the spring, one in the fall, basically now it's just like in the spring, right? Because we've changed how many conventions and conferences we have every year. Well, now they've added a rule like as a district, you can't have your international speech contest at another time. You have to have it at the convention. And so that's another rule which doesn't really affect people, but if a district was like trying to be like sneaky and like, because we didn't have the fall contest, we want to have more speech contests, we can't fit them all in, we're going to do some outside the convention. No, you're not allowed. That's it. So let's look at the judges' form. If you don't have a copy, I have a few up here. And so it's not a mystery how you're being judged on your speech when you give your speech. And some things to remember. I said that a fair and quality judge will be objective and not judge you on your content, subject matter. However, as you can see on the form, 50% of your speech is content. 30% is delivery, and 20% is language. So if you're like, my delivery is awesome, and then your content sucks, well, guess what? That's 50% of your speech. So you have to focus. Obviously, you want to focus on everything, but keep in mind when the judges are looking at this form, they're looking first at content. For example, speech development. So do you have a clear introduction, body, and a closing? Does it tie in together? Does it make sense? Are you talking about polar bear tour guides and then suddenly you go to oil sands? What's going on here? Like, and is your content, or does it make sense for the audience? For example, Toastmasters generally, blue humor is not a good thing. In other words, you don't want to start swearing or talking about, dirty jokes, unless you happen to belong to a club that allows that. But so is your content appropriate for the audience? So I could be talking about polar bears, but maybe no one's ever. Maybe nobody cares about polar bears. So is my audience going to be like, yeah, I like that topic? Maybe polar bears won't. Hopefully everyone's interested in polar bears. Yeah. And so then for your content, it's also the purpose. Now, the International Speech Contest does not have to be inspirational. But that I'll talk about culture later. But it tends to, so you shouldn't be judged on is it inspirational or, but at the same time, your content should match what your message is to the audience. So you might have a great story that you want to tell, but it doesn't fit in, leave it out. Or otherwise, if you're too preachy, but you don't have some personal content in your speech, then people might be like, okay, that's a nice lecture, but so the speech development, there's actually more information on the back. So I'm not going through this in tremendous detail because there is explanations for each topic in the back. So I suggest when you are preparing your speech and you run it, just look at the judging items and whether it fits. Now the delivery is 30%. Toastmasters, sometimes we think that delivery is 100%, but it is important. So that's also easy to judge on. For example, your appearance. So we're not supposed to judge you on the basis of gender or what you look like, but appearance is, are you coming in looking well dressed? Or are you coming in like with pizza on your face? So does the person, and it depends on the culture, again, of the club. You don't necessarily have to do suit and tie, but maybe if you see other speakers dressing up, dressing up wouldn't necessarily hurt. At least is your appearance neat? Does it fit? I mean, are you coming in beach shorts? And it's like, this time of year. Well, maybe your story is about Hawaii, so then it fits. The voice, of course, the flexibility and volume. Of course, Toastmasters were very big on having vocal variety, but it should be with purpose. And your manner. So, are you confident? Are you making eye contact? Are you staring at the wall? And then the language. So are you choosing, does it look like you've prepared? Like you're choosing words that meet the purpose of your speech? How is your grammar? And it doesn't mean that you judge somebody with English as a second language. Perhaps their grammar, of course, isn't as good, but you try to not judge them like, oh, okay, they're not going to do as well. Or, but at the same time, you don't judge them overly harshly. So it's being objective. Like basically your standards as a judge, you want to think, okay, I'm going to try and judge everybody the same. Like, how is their grammar, and regardless of their background or who that person is. And word selection. So if someone's choosing excellent words, they're not repeating their words 5 times unless it's with purpose, then that person should be, hey, they're doing really well for language. You can see there's, you can. Excellent, very good, good, fair. And so the judges form, when I do judges training, and Myrna Critney was the first one to suggest this, but I'm sure she got it from somebody. In theory, the judges, they'll put the names on backwards, and then after they mark on the sheet their scores, fold it so that they can't see that score anymore, and then go forward to try and be more objective. It doesn't mean you have to do that though. There isn't one correct way to do the form. A judge can sit there and take notes, not fill out the form, and then put a number in the bottom if they want. That's up to them. If some people are bad at math, you only have a minute. You don't want them to waste all their time trying to figure out the math. Although that's why they have unlimited time at the end, because they might need more time at the end to figure out the numbering. But the judges, of course, to be fair and objective, need to be careful on how they're numbering. But if their numbers, they can always just ignore those numbers, throw them out, and because what they're handing in is only the bottom portion of this form. They're not handing in any of their work or how they came about. Just the bottom of the form, and that's it.
So they rip it out, right? They rip it out?
Yes, that's the good point. Yeah, because you can see it's there's the little dotted line, and that's so we don't see how they do it. But again, if you're wondering, well, how am I being judged? Just take a look at this form and just look through it and see, like, am I meeting all these areas? And of course, I'm Claudia and Mahoon will tell you, practice, 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 and practice in front of other clubs and get the feedback, and then you can say, well, am I meeting this? Now I want to talk about Toastmaster culture, because unfortunately, even though judges are supposed to be fair and objective, there is a certain culture in Toastmasters. For example, movement. I have not moved, so therefore I failed, right? Well, okay, you have movement, and you're marked a movement, but your movement needs to be with purpose. I know, Toastmasters, I hate hearing evaluations where you need to move more. I'm moving. So make sure you move with purpose. And when you're on the international stage or even the district stage, and you have a huge stage, obviously it's harder to move, because here I can just like move a little bit. And the reason why we want movement is because if you have a large stage and you want to connect with the audience over here, and then I want to connect with the audience over here, it's easier if I move over. But so movement, unfortunately, you need to probably incorporate that into your speech somehow, to have movement of some sort, but try and make it with purpose and not just random. And the other thing is, of course, eye contact. Toastmasters, we're big on eye contact, and that's great, but try not to try not to do the eye contact like and so the easiest way to do that is just think like, okay, I'm going to have a conversation with one person, and then you have eye contact, and then I'm going to have a conversation with another person, and then that way your eye contact is purposeful, and then even if you don't get the whole room, at least just like your hands like do choo choo choo, because again, as judging, you're like, okay, well, that's not really an eye contact, and but that's the reality, right? it comes from Toastmasters trying to get people to be themselves when they're talking. So instead of, because even if someone's really it's animated when they're talking with their friend, when they get up in front of a group of people get all stiff, they don't move. And so that's why Toastmasters is encouraging the movement so much and the eye contact. Gestures as well. So the thing with gestures is that we're all about, you need to do more gestures. But if you're just like randomly gesturing, well, that's useless. And it should go with your personality and with your speech. So the easiest thing, of course, if you're kind of person, and lots of people like, right? So the thing you practice with your speech, which I suggest, and it's part of the Toastmaster culture, is have your hands at your side. Don't, once you're comfortable speaking, people can do stuff like put their hands in their pockets. You don't know, because you put your hands in your pockets, where are people focusing? But at the same time, your gestures, they don't have to be huge, just try and make them purposeful. And the larger the room, the larger your gestures could be in order that everyone in the room can see them, which is why at the international convention, you see very purposeful, but also sometimes very large gestures, which are because you're in a room talking to like 2,000 people. But my personality is I do tend to flail around, but if you're not the person that flails, don't flail. Don't try to make yourself flail. Just remember, you do want to have some gestures. If you're the kind of person that never does gestures, for a speech contest, incorporate some gestures. Make them purposeful. And then when you don't have gestures, put your hands at your side so you're not accidentally because then it's like, when you're judging, you're like, well, is that helping the speech? Not really. Okay, so that's enough about culture. And actually, that's probably enough about judging. So I'm going to pass it on to the next person. Claudia! Oh wait, wait.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, that was fantastic. Thank you, Ingrid. That was so cool. Now I want to be a judge. Really?
Yes, we always need more judges.
Awesome. I don't know how you did 100 contests. That's amazing. Now for our next speaker, it is my pleasure to welcome Claudia to the stage. Claudia is a professor of engineering and joined Toastmasters in 2012. She has competed in speech contests religiously since then and has won over 30 speech contests at all levels, club, area, and 3 times at the district level. Her best placing was 3rd place at the district level speech contest. Her dream is to go to Paris for the Toastmasters convention. Please help me welcome Claudia Villeneuve.
You're all going too, right? That's the International Convention for Toastmasters. All right, so this is my turn to talk about the experience of the speaker. You heard about the experience of the judges. For those of you who are judges, this is as hard as the contestant experience. I have been in speech contests where the top 3 or top 4 speakers were so good, the audience had no idea who was gonna win. And the judges, they had their 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, but I never saw the numbers. I can only imagine how close they were. The highest score is what? What's the highest score in a speech contest? 100, yes. So imagine they were 87, 89, 91, 92. This is like hair differences. So let's talk about winning club, area, and division. Club level. So before I get there, I want to show you why we have so many different levels. This is a very old pyramid. This is from 2011. Since then, Toastmasters has achieved over 100 districts. So this is just a scale of more or less of what we have. So all of us are members of Toastmasters. From the membership base, only a few brave souls compete in the speech contest. And there's somebody in the room that's trying to decide whether they're gonna compete after lunch. So this is kind of where they are right now. So you are first a member, Then you decide to compete, and then people go to area, which is a group of about 5 or 6 clubs. Then when they win, they go to division, which is a group of about 26 clubs or areas, or 5 areas, but now it's 26, 27 clubs. Then when they win division, they go to district. We used to have 82, now we have 105, I think so, 105 districts. And then those people go to the region, which is the semifinals, and finally you have the one person who's crowned the champion, world champion for the speech contest in Toastmasters. The people that tend to win this position get to become highly paid speakers. So if that's your dream, this is one way to get there. You can be a professional speaker without winning the world championship, but all the ones that win the world championship become professional speakers or trainers. One of the most highly paid trainers in the world for public speaking is actually famous in Toastmasters. What's the name of that lady? She speaks in almost every convention. I'm trying to remember the name.
Trisha Fripp.
Trisha Fripp, yes, yes. The last name Fripp is used as a verb. Let's fripp it. You know, let's be awesome. She charges, and I'm not kidding you. She charges $1,000 for 1 hour. 1 hour. And I'm thinking, that's ridiculous. No, that must be like a day or 2 days or a week. No, 1 hour. And I actually know somebody that went to training with Trisha Fripp. He walked in the room. Hi, Patricia. Hi, Eric. Okay, go. So Eric stood on the stage, and he went, and then, and she's like, stop, stop, stop. He was already wrong. With 2 seconds, 2 words. So they spend a whole hour fixing those 2 words. His body language, his eye, his voice tone, everything in that 1 minute. So let's talk about winning club. So here are my rules for winning club. Most people in club level quit before the speech contest. Have you been in a club where there were 3 people competing and only 1 showed up? Yes, so don't quit. You wanna win, don't quit. You will win by acclamation. If there's only 1 person competing, you don't even have to speak. You're automatically the representative for the club. Don't speak. If you're the only person, don't speak. A club did that. Oh, well, we're running the speech contest. Let's let the 1 person compete. And they lost by time extension. They were late by 3 seconds. So the club was left without a representative. So if you're the only one, the last person standing, you're automatically the winner of the club contest. And you go to area immediately. So don't quit. Letter B, write a 5 to 7 minute speech. Most of you have been told you don't have to memorize your speeches. Who's been told that? Don't memorize your speeches. Yeah. I am the opposite at school. If you don't have a written speech, you have no hope to actually have a structure. So this is what happens. We have 5 to 7 minutes. Did you talk about the time limits for the? No. Okay. So minimum speech is 4:30. At 4:31, the green light goes on. You have actually made your requirement.
No, it goes on at 5 minutes.
Oh, it's 5 minutes. Okay, so 5 is your minimum.
But no, 4:30 is the minimum.
Okay.
So you have 30 seconds. You don't know if you.
Oh, so 4:30 you're still qualified.
Yeah, 4:31 you're still qualified. At 5
is the green
light goes on.
Okay.
Just like at 7 minutes the red light goes on. At 7:30 you're disqualified, but there's no indication that you're disqualified.
That's
at
right.
7:30.
You just see the red, but you don't know what. Okay, how far? You're only gonna see the light at green, the green light at 5 minutes. You need to speak until the green light, otherwise you're disqualified. Or you cannot speak past 30 seconds after the red light. So do not finish the speech in red. Finish it in yellow. You know the driving thing, stale green, stale yellow? Finish it in the stale yellow. Don't go in the red, because you don't know. Is it 1 second over? 10 seconds? I actually was in a speech contest where I won division, and the timer looked at me and said, you almost gave me a heart attack. And I'm like, why? Because I can't tell you, but you almost gave me a heart attack. So I was probably 7:29, 7:27. Don't do that to me ever again. That's it. That's all he said. So write the speech. It needs to be 5 to 7 minutes. How many words do you need in a speech for a 5 to 7 minute speech? How many words?
For me, it's about 450.
Yes. So 100 words per minute. So if you want it to be 5 minutes, 500 words, 6 minutes, 600 words, 7 minutes, 700 words. That's on average. Some people speak a lot slower than 100 words a minute, and others speak faster than 100 words a minute. But if you stay in that range of 500 to 700 words, you're gonna be in the clear. Next, give the speech ahead to real people. Real people does not count your dog. No, you have to give the speech to real people. It doesn't have to be a lot of people, but real people. Because if you're that scared that you don't want to give a practice speech at the club level to real people before the contest, how are you going to survive the area? So real people. Some people give it in the club in front of the other people that are going to compete against them. They're not scared about that. Oh, I don't mind telling them my speech. But you need that experience to be able to fix the little things. Letter D, pay your fees. We have to tell this again in this session, even though Ingrid said it already. If you have not paid your dues, you're not a member of Toastmasters, you cannot compete in the Toastmasters speech contest. Very straightforward. The problem with the deadlines is that for the spring contest, the deadline for fees is, what's the deadline for fees? March 31st. And the speech contests have begun. So you might be qualified for your club, but not for your area. So you have to make sure you pay early. Who says you have to wait until March 30? Pay January 15. Give them the check in January 15. Post date it or whatever. And that's step one, pay your fees. Then you have to go and bug your treasurer or your president or your VP of education. Have you paid for the other 8 members? You need 8 members minimum that have paid by March 31st so that you are allowed to compete. Because it has to be a member in good standing and a club in good standing. So if you want to win, at least pay the fees and the club fees. The limit is 8. So your club has to pay for 8 members to start. If they are waiting for the other 15 members to pay, no worries. Pay for the first 8, the early 8, and then wait for the other ones, as long as the club's in good stead. And finally, be the most confident person in that contest. You are gonna make mistakes. This is the club level. You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna do the walking, you know, the lion cage, the cage lion walk. You're gonna do this, but it doesn't matter. If you're the most confident person in that speech contest, you're gonna win. They're not that picky at the club level. Why? Because all of you are friends, right? You're all gonna be doing the exact same thing that people are doing. But if you're the most confident, you're gonna win. In the sheet, we have manner, directness, assurance, and enthusiasm. That's about a third of the 30%, so that's 10% of the mark. In the club level, you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna forget to look at the audience. You're gonna forget to do the proper body movement. You're gonna forget. But your confidence is gonna make the judges give you a very high score here, low score in the other ones, no problem. But you're still gonna beat the others. Somebody's gonna make 10 mistakes, you're gonna make 3. You're gonna win. Somebody's gonna make 1 mistake, you're gonna make 0. You're gonna win. So this club level, you're allowed to make mistakes. I just want you to make them with flair. With flair. So that's the club level. Very simple. Don't quit. You might be the only person competing. You're allowed to compete in more than 1 club, by the way. Not more than 1 area, but you're allowed to compete in your 2 clubs. If you're a member of 2 clubs, a member of the French bilingual club and the Spanish bilingual club, I can compete in both. But when I go to area, I have to pick. Am I going for the area of my Spanish club or my area for my French club? So compete in all the clubs that you're a member of. Anybody a member of 3 clubs? Sometimes I need those people. Oh yeah, I have a meeting tonight. Didn't you have a meeting yesterday? Yeah, I'm a member of 3 clubs. Okay. Oh, and I'm a member of the advanced club. So they go to the class once a month. So they can compete in all the clubs. And this is good because you're preparing, you're competing, you're practicing, and if you win in all four, you have a choice. Which area am I gonna go to? Which brings us to the area. Oh, before we get there, this is not so secret weapon for winning a speech contest. The CC manual, I know we're going to pathways and we don't have printed manuals. Keep a copy of your CC manual, the old, for the old education system. The CC manual is how they came up with this. So that, all the speech, the 10 speeches of the CC manual, Competent Communicator Manual, are exactly how they came up with this sheet. Makes sense. We've been using that manual for 60 years. So, this is how people win the speech contest. I know it's only the first 10 projects, but people are still making mistakes today. They've been members of Toastmasters for 5, 10, 15 years, and they still have issues with vocal variety. This is the not-so-secret weapon. If you want to find this, there's actually pages that explain all the projects. Just Google CC Manual to Toastmasters to find the descriptions. There's actually a website, dldugan.com. He actually goes through every single project in detail and has examples and everything. So this is your web. So compete in all your clubs, because now you're gonna get to area. Area level is harder than division level. Even though I told you that this is club, this is area, this is division, area is actually harder. Has anybody ever competed in area? Okay. Who has ever won in area? Yeah. Now, did you find division easier or harder?
It was harder.
Division, area was harder?
Area was harder.
Area was harder? What did you feel?
I thought division was harder.
Division, interesting. Anybody who
I thought it was area myself.
area was harder? And there's another hand.
No.
I found area to be harder.
Area was harder. I agree. Totally agree. Area has, even though it's the second level, it's actually harder than the third level. The reason for that is the following. Your clubs are part of an area, which is a group of clubs, and they're all neighbors of each other. So your club is close to another clubs, and you're all in the same level of performance. Downtown, there's no hope. Downtown, there's professionals. So you're competing with all these CEOs and directors and professional people. That area is harder than when you get to division, because division is a bunch of areas together. So you could be competing with small town clubs, you can be competing with clubs that just opened last month, you could be competing with clubs that are students. So your level, your expectations for performance vary. So area is harder. This is where you have to put the time. So rule number 1, compete, do not get sick. People have gotten sick and have to miss area. And their club has no choice, right? If you're lucky, the second one is available to cover for you. So you need to start taking vitamin C, block your schedule in your phone. Your boss cannot send you to Fort McMurray on the day of the competition. This has happened to people. They get sent on a work trip. Tell your boss, these days are important to me. It's only one day. Letter B, write a good 5 to 7 minute speech. So before I told you, just write a speech. Now I'm telling you to write a good speech. Yeah. Before, if you're writing your speech right now, this is the time to do it, to make it a good one. Still 5 to 7 minutes, the exact same time rules. Letter C, over practice the speech in many clubs. So I don't like the word practice. People think that practice is once. Over practice. You need to get sick of that speech. You need to get sick of that speech. Oh my God, it's the 400th time I give this speech. I don't care. Our brain only works with a repetition. If I put you right now in grade 1, would you be an A+ student? If I put all of you in grade 1 right now, would you be an A+ student?
Oh yeah.
Totally, right? But when you were 5 years old, grade 1 was hard. Yeah. The only difference between you now and you then is practice. That's it. Our brain actually only responds with practice. Talking about soccer, I'm from Colombia. In soccer, we make the players do the same kicks over and over and over. For like penalty shots, we put the ball right in front of the frame, and we tell them kick over and over when they're 7, when they're 11, when they're 18, when they're 21, when they're 25. And then sometime, they're gonna do it in the World Cup, and they're gonna win the World Cup. Repetition, repetition, repetition. You need to practice the speech so many times that you don't need to read the print form anymore. It's just there. Letter D, now memorize the judge's sheet. So, before I even ask you to memorize it, if you notice, I didn't even tell you about the judge's sheet. Because the most confident person is gonna win, right? Now you have to memorize it. And by memorizing is, if Ingrid makes you close your eyes, you can actually name all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sections and the content percent and the percent value. Manner. What percent is manner? What percent of your score is manner?
10%.
10.
Yeah.
30 is the whole group. Yes. You need to know this, memorize it. Because if you're very good at manner, but very bad at voice control, what do you have to work on? Not manner.
Voice control.
Yeah. Don't spend your time working on the easy things. Work on the hard things. And letter E, areas harder than division, this is your warning. Now, who is in an area that has 4 clubs or less? I'm in an area that has 4 clubs or less.
4.
4 clubs or less? 4 clubs or less? Okay, good news for you. You get double the contestants.
Oh, yeah.
What happens with area is that if an area has only 4 clubs or less, then the area contest, you can send your first place winner and your second place. Because there's not enough people, right? So if the area has 5 clubs, you're gonna compete with 5 people. Actually, you and the other 4. So if your area has 5 clubs, area with 5 clubs, you're gonna compete against 4 people. Not a problem. Awesome people, but the numbers are safety numbers. If the area has 4 clubs, you're competing against how many people?
3.
Up to 7.
Huh? Oh, yeah.
Because there you're taking
Mm-hmm.
the top winner of every club and the second place of every club. So I'd rather compete against 4 than 7. So if your club is in an area that holds only 4 clubs, be prepared for the safety numbers against you, right? So areas are not a division. If necessary, don't compete in that area. If you have a choice, yeah, you have to plan this. It's like a military general. Should I go attack this place or that place? That one is a valley, bad. Valleys are bad for escaping. This one is a prairie, I'm gonna go fight in the prairie. So you have to choose. Area is harder than division. Now, these are videos that you need to go watch. President Vasilev won in 2013. That's this man over here. He's a very tall guy. I met him at the International Convention in Vancouver. I actually have a crush on him. I've been in love with him since I saw that winning video. So when I saw him at the contest, I made a beeline for President Vasilev. And there was a girl standing there and said, "Can you take a picture of us?" And she's like, "Of course." And I go, "Thank you so much, you're very kind." "Oh yeah, I know, I love taking pictures of my boyfriend." So I actually met the girlfriend of President Vasilev. That speech, his speech, he's hypnotic. He only used, remember I told you it was 700 words per speech? His speech is only 500 words. In fact, there's only like 439 words, I think it is, because there's silence throughout the whole speech. He's hypnotizing us. They put his video in neuro-linguistic programming websites because he uses certain sounds, like when he's talking about changing a tire. That sound is actually affecting our brain. So it's amazing. It's a perfect speech. The second one I want you to watch is Dhananjaya. He won in 2014. That's the guy with the rose.
That's my crush.
That's your crush? I actually hugged him.
I took a picture with him in Saskatoon.
I hugged him like 6 times. he smells very good. Dhananjaya did a very good job actually. He actually tried competing for the world level multiple times. This is the time that he happened to have won. The next one is Ramona J. Smith. She's the last winner, so she's our current champion.
Oh.
And it's the first woman in 15 years, I think. Yeah. So her speech is actually very, very, very fun. She's actually talking about boxing. Yeah. So she moves very well. So you need to hear speeches that you love and try to become them. Now, how to win division? Division is not as hard as area. So if you make it through area, you're actually a little more, you can be a little more relaxed. I am awesome, I'm awesome. I'm awesome. Now comes division. Be there even if you lost area. You have to go to the division contest. If you lost area, I don't care. I have seen 3rd place area winners compete in the division. The first person got sick. The second person didn't even go to the division contest. So when they were looking for them, they were not there. The 3rd place winner was standing right there. Can you cover for your area? No problem. The 3rd place competed in division. So even if you lost area, you have to go. B, craft a really good 5 to 7 minute speech. So the first time I asked to just write it. Just write it. Anthony, just write it. Next, I asked you to write a good one. And now I'm asking you to craft it. Craft is, now you need the abilities of an English major. Crafting a speech requires you to make people fall in love with the concept. It needs to inspire them to do something. And if possible, you need to make them cry and laugh. They say that the International Speech Contest is for making people cry, and the humorous is for making people laugh. But making them cry and laugh is actually the perfect combination. So you're not writing a speech, you're not writing a good speech, you're crafting a good speech. So crafting requires you to go get help. You want to make sure that your division competition is the practice for the district. So treat it as your practice for the district. C, over practice a speech around the city. Before I asked you to over practice a speech in many clubs, now you need to over practice around the city. Go to St. Albert, go to Athabasca, go to Fort McMurray, go to Calgary, go practice. Clubs are in need of speakers all the time. Speak, speak, speak. And if you have a really bad experience in a club, it's actually more valuable than a good experience in another club. Bad experiences get recorded into our brain. The good ones, I was good. The bad ones are like, what happened? What did I do? Those are the learning ones. So if you get a club that really hated you, your speech, and gave you really bad feedback, you have to say thank you. That's the stuff that you need. You don't need the, oh, you were awesome, you were awesome, you were awesome. No, you need the one where they really hated that you did this and this and this. So over practice the speech around the city. Letter D, avoid the judge's sheep mistakes. You're not allowed to make even one for division. In club, your charm alone could get you to win. In division, if you make a mistake in 2 of them, you're out. So no judges' mistakes. You cannot come to us later and say, well, I forgot about word selection. And the whole speech was about how you enjoy your vacation in Mexico. And you used the word awesome 20 times. The beach was awesome. And the buffet, oh, the buffet was awesome too. Word selection. The beach was a thrill and the buffet was sumptuous. You have to use word selection. So you cannot make a single mistake out of that sheet. I don't care how confident you are. But there's the letter E. be the happiest person in that entire contest. We have had speech contests in division where there were 12 contestants. And the happiest person is the one that had control over the whole room. They were practicing for the district. Their mind, this is not a contest, practicing for the district. There are people in that contest that are still shy. How do you make it to division and still be shy? Because their division was weak. Their division, they happen to be the most confident of that group. But when they get to division, I don't know if it's fear or nervousness, they turn into these robots at the contest. So if you're the happiest person in the entire contest, you're gonna do this, and you're gonna do the movement, and you're gonna do everything perfectly. The happiest person tends to win the division contest. All right, so thank you so much.
Great, thank you, Claudia, that was awesome. All right, for our next speaker, I am pleased to introduce Malon Kitchen. Malon is manager with a heavy equipment repair company, and in 2018, he won the Toastmasters International Speech Contest at his club, area, division, and even the district. He's been a Toastmasters for 5 years, and after he won a district, he actually competed in Chicago at the World Semifinals. Malon Kitchen.
I contacted Claudia because I wanted to learn something about winning speech competitions. So I actually came here prepared with a speech to deliver today. And then she realized who she was talking to. She said, no, I want you to be a judge and a presenter. So I have about 20, 30 minutes here. And what I'd like to do is start off by presenting the speech that I was going to give. And then I've got some random items I'd like to talk about as well to kind of fill in the time. But if you have questions, just feel free to let them fly here. I'm very approachable, all right? Nobody has to worry about breaking me. I'm very agreeable to talking with anyone about whatever they want to do or whatever I've done. So here goes. Last year, over 33,000 people entered into the Toastmasters International Speech Contest for the World Championship of Public Speaking. After thousands of speech competitions, that eventually filtered down to 104 finalists who represented the best public speakers in the world at the National Convention. And I was one of those 104 finalists. And I'm here today to share with you 3 lessons that I've learned from my experiences with competitions. To start off with, last year wasn't my first attempt at the International Speech Contest. That was 3 years ago. In 2016, that was my first try at the big show. I feel that the best experience I had from 2016 was meeting a previous world champion and the keynote speaker of the district conference, Mark Brown. Mark was amazing. I introduced myself to him and he made me feel like I was his best friend. We talked for about half an hour, just one-on-one, me and a world champion. I told Mark that I was competing at the speech competition, and he asked me how I thought I would do. I said, I don't know. I just feel like if I can deliver my message and be proud of what I've done, then I'll be happy with whatever the outcome is. Mark Brown poked his finger in my chest and said, that is what a world champion sounds like. That was 3 years ago. And the next time I got a chance to compete in the International Speech Contest was last year. Last year, I did have a plan. My plan was to use all the experiences I'd had in the first attempt to get me to the world stage for the National Convention. And it all started by writing a speech. I wanted to do something different. I've grown skeptical of some of the speeches and material I keep hearing over and over again at competitions. When I see someone come up on the stage with a suit and a tie and preach to us about how we can live our dreams if we just do whatever Oprah or Colonel Sanders or some other celebrity does, I just don't feel a connection to that anymore. I would do something different. And rather than preaching to the audience about how they needed to change, I would do it by opening myself up and drawing the audience into my world. And it would either be a home run or a magnificent strikeout. But either way, I was going all in. I wrote a speech about being afraid and having to overcome that fear to save my brother's life. I drew the audience into the moral dilemma of prioritizing somebody else's life over your own. And the message of my speech was that love is stronger than fear. And once I had the speech down, I gave attention to every other conceivable detail. I diligently practiced my verbal presentation. I carefully laid out the speech cadence and the vocal variety. Every movement I had on the stage was choreographed. I got a gym membership and I worked on my physical appearance. I actually went on the internet and I researched what were the top 10 qualities that women find attractive in men. According to Google, what is the first thing a woman looks at when she sees a man?
Shoes.
Shoes. From my head to my toes, I crafted what I wore to match my speech. No detail was too small. I tell people that I won the district championship by sharing a personal story, but the truth is, I believe I won the competition because of the commitment I had to all of the tiny details. Then, before I went down to the finals competition in Chicago, I met a local Toastmaster legend, an accredited speaker, and just a generally great guy, Bob Huey. Bob gave me this advice. He said, just go down there and have fun with it. And in Chicago, at the World Finals, everyone I met, everyone I saw, everyone I talked to was a distinguished Toastmaster or even more accomplished. And there I was with my Advanced Communicator Bronze designation. As far as experience goes, I was a goldfish in a shark tank. And there's a strange quirk that I have. If you tell me that I can't do something, I will prove you wrong every single time. On the other hand, if you make me feel like I don't deserve something, I will prove you right every single time. And believe me, I have struggled with that. And at the World Finals, at the worst possible time, self-doubt crept in on me and I became paralyzed in fear. And I retreated to my hotel room, locked myself in the bathroom. I stood in front of the mirror and started repeating to myself over and over again. On your first attempt at the International Speech Contest, you made it all the way to the district finals. On your second attempt, you made it all the way to the World Championships. Who else do I know that does that? You deserve this. I deserve this. And once I'd convinced myself I was worthy, Bob Huey's voice came back to me. Now just go down there and have fun with it. And that's exactly what I did. So the 3 lessons that I've learned that I wanted to share with you are this. Number 1, I believe that we all join Toastmasters for the same reason. We all have something inside of us that we want to express. You have a special message in you. You have a special message in you. There is a special message in every one of us. And the world doesn't need to hear you give somebody else's message. The world needs to hear you give your message. If you can do that and be proud of what you've done, it doesn't matter what an outcome of a competition is. You are already a winner. Second, in my opinion, in a speech contest where everyone is equally gifted and all deserving to win, it can be very hard to judge. In those situations where everyone is equal, often it is the attention to the small details that make the differences between winners and everyone else. My advice is to prepare, plan, and practice your speech until there's literally no other chances to improve it. Remember, this international speech contest only happens once a year. Be ready for it. And lastly, just go out there and have fun with it. Trust in yourself and the gifts that you have. Insecurity and self-doubt doesn't get you very far in life. Talent and hard work does. Just relax and let your light shine. And if you've liked these suggestions and how it sounds, it's because that is exactly what a world champion sounds like. So, I heard what Ingrid said, I heard what Claudia said, and I just wanted to elaborate on a few things from my experience here. In regards to speeches, I think some of the best advice I've ever been given is writing your message. When you're writing a speech, you should be thinking about the message of your speech in every word that you write. Okay? The best speeches out there not only engage us, entertain us, but they teach us a lesson. And that lesson should be simple. It should be 5 words or less. When I say my speech, the message was, love is stronger than fear. 5 words. Now, there's all different ways to write a speech. Certainly that's something you'll all explore. But there seems to be a common theme with competition speeches. There's going to be your message. There's going to be 3 support items that support your message. And there's going to be a couple of humorous applications, 2 jokes. I like to think of it, start the message at the beginning so everybody knows what you're there for. Then item 1, support, joke. Item 2, support, joke. Item 3, conclusion. That's what I see the competitions at the world level. One of the best suggestions I've ever had with my Toastmasters experience about writing speeches is this gentleman early on told me, pretend you're an Olympic athlete and you're doing a routine on the mats. You jump, you bound, you flip all over the place, and then what do? You stick the landing. Remember that stick the landing, because messages in your speech should conclude at the very end with something powerful that everybody remembers your opening and everybody remembers your closing. Stick the landing is something that I found was really effective for me. In regards to body movement, another message that I got early on, or advice that I got early on, was called planting. Okay? I imagine myself as a tree. And you're going to be talking about the support structure of your speech. And then you're coming up to a punchline or some important point. You're going to plant your feet, deliver the punchline. Then move off onto the next subject. I'm talking about the material, then here comes the punchline, plant my feet, deliver. It accentuates what you're delivering. It lets the audience know you're preparing to give them something important, and they'll be more receptive to hearing you. If you've got your speech all figured out, and there's no other improvements that you feel you can do to it, then we go on to other items. I remember going to a speech contest and breaking down and having to change a flat tire. I was dressed like this. I didn't look like that when I got into the contest. So what I started to do was every time I went to a contest, I carried a second set of clothes. I know it sounds ridiculous to some people, but once you get your white shirt all muddied up and have to present, then you start to appreciate being prepared at that kind of level. We had an area contest in my hometown last year. And because I was in my hometown, I didn't think about carrying extra clothes. Why? My house was only 5 minutes away. So I wore a new shirt, went down to the area contest, and 5 minutes before the competition, I walked to the washroom just to prep up, and I noticed these big sweat stains. So there I was in front of the air dryer, trying to clean myself up, but it taught me a lesson that I had to be prepared. As far as being prepared, did everybody find this event easily today?
No.
Okay. Imagine if this was a speech competition. Okay, you could get disqualified if you don't show up on time. I came half an hour early, and I'm not saying I'm a hero or something like that, but I've had to make sure that I'm prepared ahead of time so that I'm coming into the competition and focusing directly on what I'm there to do. Not have to worry about finding parking or where the location is. I'll drive by that facility the day before, so I get this all laid out in my head. I remember when I went to the district finals, and the first time I did the district finals, I went and did all the convention stuff, enjoyed all of the opportunities and the educationals and all that it offered. And when I went to the competition itself, I was burnt out. Last year, I got a hotel room at the conference 2 days before it started. And even though I was competing in the speech contest, I decided that I would hide in my room, come out into the hallways and socialize with the other Toastmasters, but I was there to focus on exactly what I was doing. I remember the lady at the registration desk when I came up. She asked my name and asked me what I was doing, and I told her I was a speech competitor, and she said that'll be so many dollars for the registration. I said, no, I'm already got a free ride for the speech competition, but I'm not engaging in anything else. I'm staying in my hotel room. I'm focused on what I'm doing. And then I described to her how it's like a boxer preparing for a boxing match. He stays in his room while the whole crowd fills the auditorium. And then when everything is ready, he comes out down that tiny little hall, and his handlers are keeping him focused on what he has to do. Then he gets in the ring and starts throwing punches. So after I won the district finals, I saw that lady at the registration desk, and she said, I can't believe it. It worked. So when you're going to the high level competitions, what you're trying to do is focus on why you're there. And you're there to make a presentation that you'll be proud of, and to avoid distractions that would otherwise derail you. As far as distractions go, learning how to deal with distractions is another quality that I've had to develop. And I never really thought about it until after I won the district finals. How many of you have cell phones right now? And are they all turned off? You wouldn't believe how many times I've presented at clubs to practice my speech that a cell phone would go off. One time, I heard a cell phone go off over here. I heard a cell phone go off over there. They picked them up and started talking. I swear they were talking to each other. But you know what? As far as doing your speech, delivering your speech, you can't let that distract you. If you were at the World Finals with a chance to win the World Championship, would you let that distract you? And while I was at the World Finals for the top 10, they had this explanation that if somebody's cell phone goes off, we will kill you. And during one of the championship speeches, 2 seats down, somebody's cell phone went off at the World Finals level. I spoke at a club, the fire alarm went off. You have to be prepared to overcome these things. And really, when you're facing distractions like that, when you're presenting in front of judges who've heard you before, the only thing you can do is do the best you can and let it all fall the way it's going to. Another tip that I had in regards to judges, maybe I shouldn't say this in front of Ingrid.
Go ahead. I can take it.
In this environment, we're all students, we're all taking notes. But at a speech competition, if you see somebody with a piece of paper and a pen, it's a good chance that they're a judge, okay? In regards to you making eye contact, some people will tell you to pick 2 or 3 targets in the audience and make good eye contact with those people. There is your targets. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right? I am probably one of the world's biggest flirts, and I've actually gotten reprimanded for that, focusing on a judge and flirting with a judge at one of the area contests, so don't take it too far. Okay, another 8 minutes here.
You don't have to go another 8 minutes.
Okay,
We can have a longer panel.
I don't mind having a longer panel. I just want to go over a couple things about dealing with pressure, and then we can break into the panel here, okay? I never understood fully until I got exposed to it after winning the district championship, the pressure that gets put on you. You are a representative of your district. For District 99, that is basically from Red Deer across into Saskatchewan, east and west, and all the way north. There's a lot of clubs that you're representing. My experience is that if you let me talk for too long, I say something stupid eventually. So I've had to learn how to be responsible and conduct myself as a representative of the district. With that, when you get down to the World Finals, and hopefully everyone here has a chance to do that, with a new format where we're doing video submissions now, I actually think that's going to be less stress on the district champions, because now they will pick a winner from each region, and then those 14 will go down for the World Finals. But everyone here has a chance to enter and win the World Championship. If you look up Craig Valentine, He won the world championship on his first year as a Toastmaster. And I met a man in the world finals this last August. He's from Quebec. He's been there 11 times in a row. And in the top 10, 5 times. So you imagine, it's almost like being struck by lightning, winning the district, and then to actually be struck by lightning 11 times in a row. There's a lot of pressure on you to compete when you're down there. And like I said, I was definitely a goldfish in a shark tank. So again, conduct yourself so you're proud of everything you do, and you'll be fine. Would we like to carry on with our panel?
I have a question. How many days ahead of the club contest do you have your speech completely finally written and start your practice?
Ahead. I think it depends on the person. How we've heard confidence is critical, and so if you're preparing your speech ahead of time and you're confident, I tell you as judges, it's you definitely the little things mentioned. Well, if you're sitting there and you're reading your speech because you haven't prepared it enough, you're not going to get as many points, right? Because if you're reading your speech, you're not making the eye contact that you should be making, and you're not doing the vocal variety and the gestures and the movement that you should be doing if you're reading your speech. Even though Claudia says to be confident, some contests, some club contests, you can have like 2 or 3 really strong speakers. So I think depending on your confidence and your abilities, prepare ahead of time so that you do have time to practice. Or even if it's not in front of a real person before the club contest, because we heard, just be confident. But at least to run through the speech so you're not needing your notes.
So Ingrid, the last time you competed at the club level, specifically you, how far ahead did you have your speech written?
I don't remember. That's a good question. It's not real. It's like the more important the time is, the farther ahead. Like I've given speeches at conferences, like industry speeches, and I've prepared a couple weeks ahead so that I have time to run through it at some point, and you're not sitting there at the last minute like, oh, I'm making changes. And that 5 to 7 minute speech, it's actually easier to talk for half an hour than it is for 5 to 7 minutes, right? So that's how far ahead. I don't know. I think we'll hear from the 2 more recent competitors.
My experience is, I always plan on having my speech done by October, so that by February I'm ready to deliver it at the club level. But I'm such a procrastinator. And last year, the speech I wrote was 2 weeks before the club contest. So, honestly, to tell you the truth, I probably have a bank of a dozen speeches ready to go. I just find which one motivates me the most, and then I elaborate on it, or I start fine-tuning it. And I wish I could be practiced as I started in October, but I will agree that confidence means a lot, and being up there and delivering, being ready for the club contest. I'd sure hate to lose a club contest because I wasn't prepared, especially if I had a speech I thought that would change the world.
So this is the really exaggerated answer, but the second that the humor speech contest ends, which is what, October, November sometime, that's the day I start planning the international one.
Awesome. Any other questions?
I have a question about props. I'm a prop user in speeches. I'm going to make it an open-ended question first before getting detailed. what do judges think about props? For instance, if you had a flashlight that goes off at a particular time, or some other type of thing that is a prop.
I'm not sure that slide.
Well, then it'd be
Props.
underwear.
Props can be brilliant
Okay, yeah.
if they're used strategically. The guy on the right hand side is the winner for the 2014 speech contest, and he opened the contest by putting on these briefs.
Yeah, I remember
Because
that.
he's talking about childhood playground bullying. And I forget his name, is Daniel K or something like that. Kim? I have it in the notes. But anyway, props I think can be brilliant. But you have to be careful, because if you use a prop like PowerPoint, which international speech contest, no one uses PowerPoint. But let's say you're at the club level and you just use PowerPoint for like, you know, a humorous speech contest. It better be like really good design for your PowerPoint, because if it's crappy, then it distracts. And props, and two, you have to be careful that the prop, for example, with the underwear, he didn't keep the underwear, or did he keep the underwear on? But I mean, that could be distracting, right? Because the prop is like good for that moment, but then if you're using the prop and then you keep, and it's not relevant anymore, but you still have the prop, if you don't like put it down, then it's a problem. But definitely use, if you have a prop you want to use for your speech, use it, because I've seen it used brilliantly, and we saw like those. It wasn't because the underwear wasn't why he won the contest, but the underwear it made the point so brilliantly, and it brought that humor. Malin mentioned, you know, making your point and having the joke. Well, it was memorable. Humor is memorable, even though the speeches are supposed to be inspirational. Well, they're not supposed to be, but that tends to be the Toastmaster culture. But if you use humor in your speech, and the prop can add humor. I've seen props add brilliant humor, so definitely use them if you want.
To your point, Ingrid, this is him receiving the award without the underwear. So he knew when to put it down.
That's true. Yeah.
My experience with props, particularly electronic gear like PowerPoint, it's going to go wrong. Murphy's Law is it'll go wrong at the worst possible time, and I've never trusted them. While I was in the semifinals, one of the competitors in the round that I was in brought a prop, and you have to have all of your props approved before you get to compete, and they rejected his prop. Half of the speech was gone with that prop. So whatever is comfortable for you, whatever you want to do is what you will do, and I support that. Myself, I think about music. I like to play music. I like to play guitar. I like to be involved with music. But my favorite kind of music is the a cappella, where it's just the voice and no instruments or any other effects. And that's what I see at the upper tiers of Toastmasters, is they're really focusing on the delivery, the message, and the charisma of the speaker, and the prop distracts from that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, I'm just saying that you don't see it very often.
For me, I've used props almost for every speech. Every speech had a prop. Magic wands, baby dolls, little kid chairs. The prop was part of the story, and I felt that I wasn't confident enough to describe the magic wand without having it in my hand. But the more experience you have, you are able to craft an entire Hogwarts castle in the mind of people because you're that good. So at the beginning I used them because I didn't think I was gonna be able to express a magic wand or a little kid sitting on a school chair, right? Now I can. The best advice I ever got, that was that hopefully your slides will break. Hopefully your PowerPoint will collapse and your computer will shut down, because you are the slides.
I wouldn't.
Question. Is there like an ideal speed of speaking? that maybe would give you an edge? And speaking fast or speaking slow or just in between? Just speaking at your normal pace.
Don't speak too fast. Like I just said, don't speak too fast. And if you speak slow, that's okay. Speaking slow can be powerful. But when you're speaking slow, make sure that you're not speaking slow. That's annoying, right? It has to be with purpose. With purpose. Like,
my speech that won the district finals last year was a little over 1,000 words. But if you listen to it, and it was 7 minutes and 27 seconds long. And believe me, I've practiced it enough times, I can tell you it will land between 7 minutes and 28 seconds and 7 minutes and 26 seconds. So I've presented that speech enough times, and the feedback I got from everyone is the biggest complaint was that I stopped talking. They liked just hearing my cadence, just hearing my voice. I asked them what the message of my speech was. I don't know, I just like hearing you talk. So this speech this year I've got prepared already, and I decided I would reduce the word count to 600. Because from what I've reverse engineered by watching videos of World Championship speeches, they're around the 600 to 700 word limit. And they're using lots of pauses for the message to sink in. My speech that won last year was a roller coaster, but it was intended to be that way. But in general terms, the ones that are winning the World Championships are not. They're giving opportunity to ask the audience a question and almost waiting for them to answer it. They're giving lots of pause for the audience to let it sink in what's going on. So I don't know how I'll do with a speech almost half the word count as I did last year. But I think that that's, in the grand scheme of things, the direction that I want to carry it.
Well, I'm from Colombia, so I speak really fast. And I'm from the Caribbean coast of Colombia, so I speak even faster than normal Colombians. But I'm in Canada now, right? So I have to speak for those, even though I don't have a strong accent, I have to speak more slowly so that people that are speaking English as their fifth language can understand a Colombian accent with the English. Conversational tone is usually the rule. Talk like you are talking to a friend in the office or telling a story at work. If he sounds fake, people will know. If you speak fast but it's authentic, people will love it. The speed is up to your confidence and authenticity level. But if you have emotion in a speech, silences are very powerful. Especially so that you can compose yourself and not cry. I've given speeches where I'm about to burst in tears, and you have to, rein it in. So the silence helped me as well as the audience. Conversational tone is the usual speed, as long as it's authentic.
people tend to speak faster when they're nervous, so get someone to watch what because there's a cadence. So some people get away with speaking fast, and it also depends on your diction, like how you enunciate words. If you don't enunciate and mumble and you're speaking fast, no one's going to understand. They're going to miss the message. And on the judges' forum, that's going to be marked because they're not understanding. So pauses are magical, and your natural cadence, go with that. But just watch that you're not speaking faster because you're nervous. So that's where feedback can help. And when you're speaking at the district level and above, you have microphones, which is awesome because then you're not trying to speak louder to reach the whole room. And then of course that can be a little annoying, and then your voice cadence changes because you're trying to speak to the whole room.
Thank you. One final question.
the importance of beginning and the end, it's a question for both Melon and Ingrid. You start on with the message, you put it out right there, and then you're going to reiterate your message to the crowd in the end that they have something to take along with themselves. So what is the winning formula, or if there is any, for that particular message in the beginning and the end, and that 30-second formula, whether a good beginning and a good end is going to take somebody as a judge to say that yes, that's a standout winner? Or is there a way out?
Well, I just go back to my original premise about knowing your message before you write your speech. It's a simple message that you can relate to anybody. And if you can't write it on a post-it note, then it's too long. Okay, it's too complicated. Then I incorporate that message into the introduction, and I plan to incorporate it into the conclusion. So you start off with everybody knowing what you're going to talk about, and then conclude after you've done, this is what we talked about, this is how it all worked out. And then in the middle, you give examples of support for your message. What I did with my speech last year was, the title was, "Don't worry, you're not going to die, I'm not going to let that happen." So that was, I thought that was smart. I put that into my title. So when the contest chair introduced me, this is Malin Kitching, don't worry, you're not going to die, I won't let that happen. Don't worry, you're not going to die, I won't let that happen, Malin Kitching. Then I got up and I delivered that line again. Don't worry, you're not going to die, I won't let that happen. And then I went through the whole story about how I was scared and my brother was consoling me, telling me he won't let that happen. And then it turned around that I had to save his life through being a bone marrow donor for cancer treatment. And I had to decide if I would do that or not. And when I decided, I concluded at the end saying, don't worry, you're not going to die, I won't let that happen. So I had that continuity across the whole speech. Okay, what you do is up to you, but the message, the more times you can drill that message in amongst your speech, the better. And you definitely have to have it at the introduction, and you have to have it at the conclusion.
I agree. People have different personalities, obviously, and learning. And some people are like, just tell me what's going on. So that's why the introduction, and some people need to know, like, what are you going to talk about? So the introduction is critical. The body is important for some people, like me as an engineer, like, give me the facts while I explain this. And some people don't care. But the conclusion is also important because then you're hitting it home. So make sure that you have a strong intro and a strong conclusion. Of course, winning speeches, the whole speech is strong, but sometimes people only remember the beginning and the end. And so just make sure that you've got something that catches the attention of the audience, whether it's a prop or it's pretty sneaky on your speech title, you know. Yeah, oh, speaking of speech titles, those are important. Speech titles. Malin just mentioned your name, speech title, name. Well, that's two opportunities to get the message started with your audience. So a catchy speech title, not what I learned in Toastmasters this past year. Like, you know, my house burned down, or dealing with a burning house, or something. Make your speech title relevant to your speech and catchy if you can, but whatever, it's the first part of your introduction. So I've heard horrible speech titles and great speeches, and I'm like, what? And then sometimes the speech title it can just make the person like right away they're like, oh, that's, oh, or like, hee, that's funny, and then right away the person's more engaged. So speech titles.
It's like the songs you hear on the radio. Okay? You look at the title of the song. Quite often the title of the song is what the message of the song is, the chorus, the first line of the chorus. In fact, there's been some songs in the past where their actual title have nothing to do with what the song is about, and I don't know what the song title is, like the,
Bohemian Rhapsody.
yes, the Pina Colada song. I don't even know what the title of that is, but it's not the Pina Colada song. So that message, that simple message should be weaved into your title. And I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that when the judges are judging you, after they go back afterwards, they should be able to look at that scorecard and say, I remember that speech. I remember that title of that speech. It should stand out.
Great, fantastic. Well, I want to thank you all, Ingrid, Melon, and Claudia, for this tremendous opportunity to share your experience. And thank you to the audience for being here today and participating. And with this, I conclude the training part of the session today. We will now take a quick break, have some refreshments, and then you will begin with the content, with the speech contest. Thank you very much.